Hey everyone, welcome to Yada Yada Yiddish, where we explore timeless Jewish lessons that we learn from the show Seinfeld. This week, we are analyzing episode 3 from season 3. Jerry and Elaine go to visit Jerry's parents in a retirement community because Jerry's parents are being honored at some dinner. And when they get there, Jerry is offered a pen from one of the residents there named Jack.
Take the pen.
Oh, no.
Go ahead.
I couldn't.
Come on, take the pen.
I can't take it.
Do me a personal favor.
No, I'm not
take
comfortable.
The pen.
I cannot take it.
Take the pen.
Are you sure? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
And at first, Jerry says, no, I don't need it. You keep it. And they go back and forth until finally Jerry agrees to accept this gift. Meanwhile, Jack, who didn't really want to give away the pen to begin with, begins telling everybody in the community about how Jerry stole his pen.
Jerry wouldn't do that. Jack gave it to her.
And as you can imagine, comedy ensues. When I saw this episode, the thing that came to mind was a really basic question, which is, if I do something nice for someone else, but I do it begrudgingly, is it worth even doing it? Does that invalidate the action? Does that invalidate the good deed that I've done? Is it better to do something begrudgingly or not to do it at all? On one hand, we have a concept when it comes to mitzvot, that even if I do something for the wrong reasons, it's still better than not doing it at all. Because after all, the more I do things for the wrong reasons, eventually I'll come to do things for the right reasons. But does that apply to acts of kindness? Now, while it's not exactly the same, the first place my mind goes is to the laws of charity, the laws of tzedakah. If a person gives charity, but he does so in a begrudging way, in a way that shows that he doesn't really want to give it, has he fulfilled the mitzvah of giving tzedakah? Has this person, in fact, given charity? That's a good question. And honestly, I'm not entirely sure what the answer is. You see, the Rambam outlines 8 different levels of giving. And his lowest level, the lowest rung on the ladder, is Mishum Sheyitain Lo Be'etzev, when a person gives with sadness. Now, what does the Rambam mean? When he says a person gives with sadness, does this mean the person clearly is showing that he is sad, showing that he does not want to be giving this gift? Or does it mean that a person internally is harboring feelings of regret, remorse, and being begrudging? Is he outwardly expressing his feelings, or is he keeping those feelings inside? Some want to argue that the Rambam means that the person is internally feeling sadness. But if a person were to express that sadness, if a person were to show on their faces that they don't want to be giving the gift, that's going to embarrass the recipient. And by doing so, this person is not only not fulfilling the mitzvah of charity, they're actually being over an isser. They are actually transgressing a prohibition. So, according to those opinions, not only would it not be an act of charity, it's actually a negative prohibition that they are transgressing by giving a gift with a sour face. So again, in the case of the episode, it's not really an act of charity, but it would seem that for Jack to begrudgingly give the pen when he doesn't want to, and then go around telling everybody about how he didn't want to give this pen, but Jerry made him, that is not only not an act of kindness and giving, it's actually a negative thing to do. Jack would have been much better off not giving the pen at all and keeping his mouth shut. But let's continue with the Rambam's 8 levels. So again, the lowest level, let's assume for a second that we're going to go with those opinions. There are other opinions who say that no, what the Rambam means is that even a person who gives begrudgingly, at least they gave something. Giving something is better than not giving. A person should try to give lovingly, should try to give with kindness, but if a person can't, it's better that they give rather than not give at all. So however you look at it, that's the lowest rung. Above that, we get to rung number 7. Rung number 7 is when a person gives, but not really as much as they should. But they give it with a happy face. They give it with words of encouragement. So perhaps I'm not at a point financially where I can give as much as the person might need, but if I give it with a smile, if I offer words of encouragement, that I've given this person something so valuable, and that is actually a step above the lowest rung. Then we get to rung number 6. Level number 6 is giving, but only after one is asked. This is the case where a person is solicited to give a donation and they give the donation. It's a wonderful thing to do, but it's still not the ideal. Even better yet would be level 5, to give without being asked. There is so much value placed on being able to anticipate the needs of those around us, both those who are less fortunate than us, the poor, but also our friends and our family. How important is it not to wait for someone to ask us for help, but to anticipate those needs and go ahead and take care of them on our own? That is so much greater, so much better of a level of giving. Then we get to level number 4, and now we're up to the higher levels of giving. In the higher levels of giving, care is taken to make sure that the recipient retains their dignity. This is done by ensuring confidentiality. So in level number 4, the recipient knows who is giving it, but the giver does not know who the money is going to. This category is similar to what the sage of Hana ben Chilai used to do, where in times of famine he would put food outside of his home and people could come and just take. And that way the people who were receiving the food knew where it was coming from, but the donor didn't know where it was going. So the donor still retained humility and there was some saving face, but the recipients still felt beholden to the donor. The Rambam, when he's giving his different levels, explains that this level is similar to the practice in the time of the Talmud, where sages would walk with a bag of coins behind their back. That way, people in need could take those coins without the donors ever knowing where the money went. So in that case, there was still saving some face, but there was still a feeling of being beholden. Then we get to level number 3. In level 3, the giver knows who the recipient is, but the recipient doesn't know who the giver is. So the recipient has no idea where the money is coming from, so he never needs to feel a sense of insecurity that somebody's going to hold something over him because he has no idea who the giver is. The Talmud records a story of Mar Ukva, who used to daily give money to someone who he knew was in need, and he would leave a bag of coins by this family's doorstep. And the family, day after day, kept on seeing this money appearing out of nowhere, and they wanted to know where it was coming from. So they waited to see who that person was who was leaving the money every day. And one day they came close. Mar Ukva had just put the money down, and they opened the door and quickly chased after him to see who it was. They kept on running and running until they were getting closer. And it was at that point that Mar Ukva and his wife jumped into a furnace, and they figured to themselves, better to lose their lives than to embarrass the person by letting them see who was giving them money. Now that might have been an extreme example, but it's important that we remain anonymous when giving to individuals so that they won't feel a sense of owing us, a sense of insecurity. Now that's not to say that all gifts should be given anonymously, especially when they're given to organizations. Often when a person gives a gift and they make a donation to an organization, if they choose to remain anonymous, it won't inspire people to give in the same way, versus a person who is willing to let their name be attached to that gift. When people see that this person is giving money to this organization, they're more willing to chip in and participate in the fundraising as well. So this does not apply in all cases. This is specifically talking about when you're giving to an individual and you want to ensure that the individual doesn't feel bad receiving the gift. Now we get to level number 2. In level number 2, the identity of the giver and the identity of the recipient stay anonymous. In this case, the person receiving the money never knows where it comes from, and the person donating the money doesn't know where it's going. This is best accomplished by donating to a discretionary fund, to some sort of fund which every Jewish community in the world has, where a person is able to give anonymously and the recipients are able to receive it without knowing where it came from. In this case, everyone's identity stays hidden. So a person never feels bad receiving because they don't have anybody holding anything above their heads because they don't know who those people are. And the person giving the money doesn't feel any sense of superiority because they don't know where the money's going. This only works, and the Rambam even goes out of his way to explain it. This only works if you trust the person you're giving the money to. If you trust the organization that's handing out the funds, or you trust the person who is being entrusted with those funds to make sure that they are doing their research, that they're giving all the money properly. So then this is an excellent way to give charity. And then we get to level number 1. Level number 1 is where I give a person not when they need the charity, but I prevent them from getting to a point where they need the help. Level number 1 is accomplished when I give a person a loan, when I give a person a job opportunity. I give a person a way to make money while keeping their self-esteem intact. And then we arrive at the highest level of giving. The greatest form of giving, says the Rambam, is giving a person before they need charity. It's giving a person the financial independence to do things on their own. One of the most basic human needs is the ability to feel needed, to feel capable. And when I give somebody a loan, I make an investment. I give someone a job or a business opportunity. I make an introduction. I give someone advice. I allow that person the dignity and self-respect to feel like they're doing it on their own. In this way, says the Rambam, I'm giving charity, I'm giving the money, I'm giving the time, I'm giving whatever I need to give, but the person is still retaining their self-esteem. That is the greatest form of giving. Rav Yaakov Muscat lived in a village with a blind man who every day would come and set up shop and try and sell his wares, and people weren't buying it. They weren't buying these items, and this poor man was getting into a very difficult financial situation. So every day Rav Yaakov would go and he would buy all the man's merchandise. One thing here, one thing there. When people from the community saw what was happening, they said to Rav Yaakov, they said, "Why are you doing this? Clearly you're only buying these goods because you want to support the blind man. But why make him come every morning and set up his shop and schlep all his stuff? I bring everything and go through the trouble of setting up the shop and selling all the wares and sitting outside every day in the hot sun. Just give him the money." And Rav Yaakov said, this poor person, he's already lost his sight, and he's already lost his livelihood. Does he need to lose his self-respect as well? It's not always about the money. If I give someone $1,000, but I make them feel like a nothing, have I really given them at all? On the flip side, if I give someone a little bit, but I make them feel like $1 million, now I've truly given them something. That is the highest level of giving. We see from all the levels of the Rambam the amount of care and consideration that goes into ensuring that when somebody is the recipient of a gift, when somebody is the recipient of charity, that they don't feel less than. That just because somebody has nothing doesn't mean they have to feel like a nothing. We have to go out of our way to ensure the dignity of the recipient, the dignity of the poor is intact and maintained. We can't just give money. We have to think about how we're giving money. We have to think about how we're doing acts of kindness to ensure that the recipient feels good about being a recipient. It's very challenging to be on the other side, to be on the receiving end. What can we do to make it easier for them? Let's take a look in the words of the Rambam himself as he describes this greatest, highest, best level of giving. He explains, Shmona malos yesh b'tzedakah zu l'mala mizu. There are 8 levels of giving, each one surpassing the other, as we explain all 8. Maila Gadola, the greatest level, she'ein l'mala mimena, there's nothing greater, there's nothing higher. Zeh hamachzik biyad Yisrael. This is somebody who supports someone else, v'nosein lo matana, and they give him a gift. O halva, or a loan, o osa imo shutfis, or they enter into some sort of business partnership, or they find him a job. Kedei lechazik es yado ad shelo yitzarach lebrios lishol. In order that they strengthen him so he doesn't need to come onto asking others for money. But then this is the kicker. He explains the biblical source for this. He says, Ba'al zeh ne'emar, and this is what the verse means when it says, V'echazakta bo ger v'tosha v'cha imach, that you shall support him, the stranger, the resident, and he shall live among you. The verse the Rambam uses as his source for this highest level of giving comes from the book of Leviticus. In Leviticus 25:35, the verse says, if your brother becomes impoverished and his means falter in your proximity, you shall strengthen him so that he can live with you. On those words, ve'echazakta bo, and you shall strengthen him, Rashi, who's our classic commentator, explains what these words truly mean. The word Rashi is an acronym for the name Rav Shlomo Yitzchaki, which was his name. Whenever we look at Rashi's commentary, it's important that we understand Rashi's job. Rashi's writing his commentary before the invention of the printing press. That means Rashi knows that if you want to read his commentary, you want to have his commentary, you're going to need to hire a scribe who's going to transcribe word for word, letter for letter. And therefore, Rashi doesn't add an extra letter that isn't necessary. Oftentimes, Rashi will go straight into the answer without even asking the question, because he assumes if you read the verse, you'll have the same question he had, and if he gives you the answer, then you know what the question was by working backwards. Rashi doesn't waste a single drop of ink. That's important every time we see a Rashi, and this Rashi is no different. On the words ve'echazakta bo, and you shall strengthen him, Rashi explains that this refers to giving somebody a loan. It refers to sparing someone from falling into the throes of poverty, giving someone a business opportunity. But Rashi doesn't stop there. He continues, and he gives an analogy which is really out of character, especially because the analogy isn't really needed. You can just say, ve'echazakta bo, you should strengthen him. And this Rashi is no different. In his commentary on this verse, Rashi explains, ve'echazakta bo, you should strengthen him. Don't allow a person to falter, don't allow a person to fall. Rather, as they are falling, help them gain their balance. What Rashi is saying is it's so much easier to prevent someone, or at least what it seems like Rashi is saying, is that it's so much easier to prevent someone from falling than to wait until they fall and then try to pick them up. But Rashi doesn't stop there, and that's what's strange. He gives the analogy of a donkey carrying a burden. And he says, as the donkey is falling over, one person is needed just to straighten him up, and now the donkey is on his way, burden up, everything's great. But if you let the donkey fall, even 5 people can't pick him up again. Now, why is Rashi giving an analogy? It's not necessary. I understand the concept without the analogy. The analogy doesn't seem to add anything to my understanding. And what's up with the wording? Even 5 can't pick him up again? Well, can 6? If 6 can do it, then just say, it will need 6 people to pick him up. Why even 5 can't pick him up again? What Rashi is explaining is that if you let a person fall, then even 5 can't pick him up again. Meaning even though the 5 people can physically stand the person back up. You can give the person the money that they need, you can support them monetarily, and they can get back on their feet. But they've lost their dignity forever. And so even when they stand up, they're not really standing. That is not called standing someone up. Even 5 can't lift them up again. That's what it means, ve'echazakta bo. Strengthen him. Don't let a person fall. Let a person maintain their sense of dignity, their sense of self, their sense of worth. In the Woman of Valor, the Ashes Chayil, that Jewish men sing to their wives every Friday night, one of the stanzas, one of the expressions of praise that we give to this woman of valor is we say, Kappa Parsaliani, that her hand is open to the poor, V'yadeha shilchan la'evyon, and her hand extends to the destitute. That seems redundant. Aren't those both saying that she gives charity? But no. Look at the words carefully. Kappa Parsaliani, she sticks her hand out to the poor, meaning she makes the resources available. She understands that when she gives in a way that the person maintains their self-respect. But when it comes to the destitute, to someone who literally can't make it another day, then she extends her hand, then she gives. She knows not just that she has to give, but she understands how to give. And not everybody needs to receive in the same way. She understands and takes into consideration the feelings of the recipient. And that's not just true with giving charity. It's true with acts of kindness as well. We find something similar with Abraham. He had just undergone surgery. And because he was recovering, God made it exceedingly hot outside, so that none of the guests would be coming by because God knew that Abraham loved hosting guests. His tent famously was open on all four sides. Anyone who needed hospitality, Abraham would bring them inside and give them food and drink and a place to stay. And God wanted Abraham to be able to recover and relax. So he made it so hot that no one would be traveling. And Abraham was so distraught over not being able to do acts of kindness that God sent 3 angels, but they didn't look like angels. He thought they were regular people. And the verse describes Abraham seeing these 3 men. And the verse says, and it comes from Genesis 18:2, Vayisa Einav, and Abraham lifted up his eyes, Vayar, and he saw, Shlosha Anashim, 3 men, Nitzavim Alav, that were standing by him. And then it repeats, Vayar, and he saw. So again, he lifted up his eyes, he saw, Vayar, and he saw again. 3 times mentioning seeing. Vayoratz lekros lemipesach ha'oel, and he ran from the tent to go greet them. Vayishtachvu arza, and then he bowed to the ground. Let's dissect this verse for a second. It says that Abraham lifted up his eyes, and he saw that these men were standing, and he saw, and he ran to greet them. First of all, why does it say he saw 3 times? Seems very redundant. Second of all, here is a man who is extremely elderly, who is running out on a hot day to go greet these men and bring them into his home to offer hospitality. Why is he running after them? Couldn't he just walk to them, offer them a place to stay, offer them something to eat or drink? Wouldn't that have been the same? Why is he running? We can understand the answer to both questions by looking at the verse carefully. Like we said, why? What is he seeing all the time? Vayisa Einav, he lifted up his eyes, meaning he went to actively look and see what he can see around him. Vayar, and he saw that there were gentlemen, meaning he used his physical eyes to see, but then he did something deeper. Vayar, he saw, not just with his eyes, he perceived something. What did he notice? What did he realize about their body language? He noticed nitzavim, they were standing. He noticed their hesitancy. They weren't walking towards him. They had stopped. They were standing because they were hesitant. They didn't want to impose. Again, going back to that image of Jerry and the pen, the first thing Jerry says is, no, I couldn't.
Take the pen.
Oh, no.
Go ahead.
I couldn't.
Come on, take the pen.
I can't take.
Right? I don't want to take. He sees that. And he realizes the only way he can make these guests feel comfortable is if he runs to them, because by running to them, he's showing them with his body language that they are doing him as much of a favor as he is doing for them. That he is excited to do this mitzvah. He is excited to host them. He is not being put out. He's not just sitting back and if they come, okay, they come, they ask, and then they feel bad about it. No. By running to them, he is showing them that he is excited to do this. He is excited for the opportunity. And by doing so, they retain their self-dignity and their self-respect. What Abraham realized is it's not the same thing. We look at this verse, and when we look at the running part, we think he's doing this with what we call zrizas, alacrity. Every time I do a mitzvah, if I do it quickly, I do it excitingly, I do it right away, I get a bonus extra credit point. I did the mitzvah, but I did the mitzvah with zrizas. I did the mitzvah with alacrity. So I asked my daughter Rachel, who's sitting right here watching me record, to set the table for Shabbat dinner. If she sets the table, bing, check, she gets the mitzvah. She did a mitzvah. She did something that her parent asked her to do. She prepared for Shabbat. She gets both of those mitzvahs. But if she does it right away, if she runs to do it with excitement and alacrity, then she gets bonus points, extra credit. She gets an extra mitzvah called zrizas. That is not what was happening here. It's not that if Abraham would have walked towards them slowly, he would have gotten the mitzvah of achnasat orchem, of hospitality and doing acts of kindness. But if he ran, he would get that mitzvah plus the bonus mitzvah of alacrity. No. What he realized is if he didn't run to them, then his act of giving would have been insufficient because they would have received it, but they would have felt bad about receiving it. That's how far we go when it comes to giving. It's not just about what we give, it's about how we give. It's not just about how we give, it's about how we make the person feel by receiving our gift. That is the extent to which we go to ensure that when we give, we don't just give, but we give in a way that we make sure we're not taking from the person their most important and valuable asset, that we're not robbing somebody else of their self-respect. Before we close our episode, I want to share a beautiful insight from Rav Yosef Dov Soloveitchik. He explains Ve'achzak doesn't just go on the personal interactions between a giver and a recipient. He says it goes collectively for us as the Jewish people. Throughout our history, there are always going to be times where we are faltering, where we're falling. But because the Jewish people is spread out and we're all over the world, when one community is in trouble, when one community is in a position of challenge, that is an opportunity for another community to step up and stop them from falling before they fall. Nationally, collectively, we have the obligation to ensure that when we are safe, when we are secure, to go out of our way to make sure that others that are not secure, others that are not safe, are taken care of, are protected, and are supported by us. We saw this on October 7th. In the aftermath of the most horrific massacre since the Holocaust, Jews throughout the world mobilized. They came together to figure out what they could do to make their brothers and sisters in Israel secure, safe, and strong. When I went on my first trip in November, I was overwhelmed by how many people donated items. Every day we got hundreds of items that were being donated by people to go to soldiers that they never met, and they would leave notes in those Amazon packages, as if they were sending a care package to their child off in sleepaway camp. That's how personal it was to them. When we see our brothers and sisters struggling on the other side of the world, it's not all the way over there. It's at home. It's personal. And when we see others that are struggling, it is our responsibility to ensure that they don't fall, that we stop them before they fall, that we give them the strength, encouragement to know that we are here protecting and supporting them. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed. If you have questions, comments, rebuttals, or if there's an episode you want us to tackle here on Yada Yada Yiddish, you can shoot me an email at yada@lairfield.com.